The vibration startled me, not the usual gentle hum of a text, but the insistent, almost angry buzz that meant a group chat update. I was still buzzing from the morning, replaying the little victory dance I'd done in the kitchen. Finally, after months of late nights and relentless effort, the project was done. And tonight, a small gathering, just a few close friends, a chance to exhale, to feel seen. I unlocked my phone, the screen illuminating my face in the dim light of the living room. My smile faltered. It was Mom in the family group chat, the one with everyone, aunts, uncles, cousins, even great-grandma Edna, who barely knew how to use emojis. The message was short, brutal. Nobody cares about your party. Time to grow up. My breath hitched. It felt like someone had punched me in the gut. The words swam on the screen, each one a tiny, jagged shard of glass. I read it again, then again, hoping it would morph into something else, a joke, a mistake, but it remained, stark and unforgiving. My fingers trembled as I typed a reply, then deleted it. What could I say? How could I explain the sudden, icy grip around my heart? This wasn't a teenage birthday party. This was recognition. A small nod to the fact that I'd poured my soul into something, and I wanted to share that joy, that relief, with the people who were supposed to care. Tears pricked at my eyes, but I blinked them back. I wasn't going to cry. Not here, not in front of everyone. But the sting of those words, it was a brand, a mark that settled deep within me. The other messages started to trickle in. Aunt Carol's awkward lol, my cousin David's thumbs up emoji. Silence from the rest. No one questioned it, no one asked if I was okay. It was as if I'd announced I was having a tea party with my stuffed animals. A wave of nausea washed over me. I wanted to disappear, to crawl into a hole and pull the earth in after me. The excitement of the morning, the pride I'd felt just hours ago, evaporated, leaving behind a hollow ache. This wasn't just about a party, it was about me, about how I was seen, about how much I mattered, or apparently how little. I tried to distract myself, to focus on the logistics of the evening, the food I'd ordered, the music I'd carefully curated. But the effort felt futile, like trying to build a sandcastle in a hurricane. The words kept echoing in my head, a relentless, mocking chorus. And then a different thought flickered in my mind, a tiny spark of unease. It was about Sarah, my girlfriend. She'd been distant lately, busy, she'd said, but there was a coolness in her voice, a detachment in her eyes that I couldn't quite place. I pushed the thought away. I didn't want to think about that now, not on top of this, but the seed of doubt had been planted. Mom's message, with its casual dismissal of my feelings, had somehow loosened a thread that I hadn't even realized was there. I remembered last week when I'd mentioned the project deadline to Sarah. Her response had been lukewarm. "That's good," she'd said without looking up from her phone. No excitement, no pride, no "I'm so happy for you," just indifference. I'd shrugged it off then, told myself she was stressed, that I was being too sensitive. But now, with the sting of Mom's message still fresh, Sarah's reaction felt like another piece of the puzzle, a puzzle I was suddenly afraid to solve. Was I overreacting? Was I just projecting my hurt onto her? Or was there something more? A knot tightened in my stomach. The evening which had started with such promise now stretched before me like a long, dark tunnel, and I had the sinking feeling that I was walking into it alone. The party, it was a blur. I went through the motions, smiled, made small talk, but inside, I was a million miles away, replaying the morning's message, Mom's words, over and over. And then, Sarah. Her face, when she arrived, was bright, almost too bright, like she was performing. "Congratulations," she'd said, hugging me, but the hug felt hollow, distant, like she was hugging a friend, not someone she was supposed to be deeply connected to. I tried to shake it off, to chalk it up to my own heightened sensitivity. But the feeling lingered, a cold dread that settled in my chest. It was then that my mind started to wander, to pick at the loose threads of our relationship, the threads I'd carefully ignored before. Like the other night, we were supposed to have dinner, a quiet evening at that new Italian place I knew she loved. I'd made the reservation weeks in advance, but then she called, barely an hour before. Something came up at work, she said, her voice tight. I can't make it. I'd said, okay, trying to sound understanding. But inside, a tiny voice had whispered, liar. I'd pushed it down, told myself she was under pressure, that I was being unfair. Now that voice was screaming. And then there was Mark, her friend from work. He was always around, always texting, always calling. She'd laugh at his jokes, her eyes sparkling, a look I hadn't seen directed at me in months. I'd asked her about him once, casually. So, Mark seems nice. She'd shrugged. He's just a colleague, don't be ridiculous. Ridiculous. That word echoed in my head now. Was I being ridiculous or was I being played? I remembered the weekend trip she'd taken with her girlfriends. She'd sent pictures, smiling, laughing, but something about them felt staged, forced. I'd felt a twinge of jealousy, but I'd dismissed it. She needs time with her friends, I'd told myself. I'm being possessive. Now, I wondered, were those really her girlfriends? Was Mark there? The thought sent a shiver down my spine. The party music, the laughter of my friends, faded into the background. I was trapped in a loop of suspicion, a loop I couldn't escape. I tried to talk to her later when the party was winding down. I pulled her aside, away from the noise. I've been feeling a bit down lately, I said, the words clumsy and inadequate. I need to talk, she sighed, a weary, impatient sound. Can we do this later? I'm exhausted. It's been a long week. Long week, not, are you okay? What's wrong? Just a dismissal. I felt a wave of loneliness wash over me, a loneliness that had nothing to do with being alone. It was the loneliness of being with someone who felt miles away, someone who didn't seem to see me, to hear me, to care. As she walked away to say goodbye to another guest, I saw her smile, a genuine, radiant smile, but it wasn't for me, it was for someone else. And in that moment, the thread started to unravel faster, pulling at the carefully constructed fabric of my relationship, threatening to tear it apart. The phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. Not mine, Sarah's. I was making coffee, trying to shake off the remnants of last night's party, the hollow congratulations, the gnawing suspicion. She'd left it charging, forgotten in her rush to get to work. Normally I wouldn't even glance at it. Privacy, respect. But this morning the buzz was persistent, and the screen lit up with a preview of the message. Can't wait to see you tonight. Missed you all weekend. My hand froze. My heart slammed against my ribs. It wasn't a name I recognized, not a girlfriend, not anyone from her office that I knew. The words hung in the air, thick with implication. I told myself it was spam, a wrong number, anything but what my gut was screaming, but I couldn't ignore it. The seed of doubt, planted last night, had sprouted into a thorny vine, its tendrils wrapping around my throat. I picked up the phone. I know I shouldn't have, but I did. I swiped. The message was from Mark, her friend from work, the one with the radiant smiles. My world tilted. The kitchen, the morning light, the sound of the coffee brewing, everything blurred. My hands shook as I scrolled through the messages. There were more, many more. Last night was amazing, one read. Wish you were here, another. There were heart emojis, kisses, details I didn't want to know, details that burned into my brain like acid. I felt sick, betrayed, like I'd been punched again. But this time it was a different kind of pain, not the dismissive sting of Mom's words, but a deep, visceral ache, a violation of trust that ripped through me. I wanted to throw up, I wanted to scream, but I stood there frozen, staring at the screen. The evidence of her deception laid bare before me. I tried to breathe, to think, but my mind was a whirlwind of questions, accusations, and memories, all tainted now, all seen through the lens of betrayal. How long? Was it just this weekend? Or had it been going on for longer? All those late nights at work, the weekend trips, the forced smiles, were they all lies? I remembered her saying, "Don't be ridiculous," when I'd asked about Mark. Ridiculous. I was the ridiculous one, for believing her, for trusting her, for being so blind. I wanted to call her, to confront her, to demand an explanation, but I couldn't, not yet. I needed to process this, to make sense of the chaos in my head. I put the phone down gently, as if it were a bomb. I finished making the coffee, the routine a strange comfort in the midst of the storm. But the coffee tasted like ash. The day stretched before me, a long, endless expanse of pain and uncertainty, and I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that everything had changed. The day crawled. Each minute felt like an hour, each hour an eternity. I went through the motions of work, answering emails, attending meetings, but my mind was a loop of images and questions. Sarah's face, Mark's name, those damn messages. I couldn't live with the uncertainty. I needed to know. I needed to confirm the truth, even if it shattered what little was left of my world. So I did something I never thought I would do. I waited until Sarah got home, and then, while she was in the shower, I looked at her phone. My hands shook as I navigated the menus, my heart pounding in my ears. I felt a wave of guilt, a sickness in the pit of my stomach, but the need for truth was stronger. And there it was, a folder of photos, pictures of Sarah and Mark, holding hands, kissing, laughing, in places I recognized, places we had been together. The world went silent, the sound of the shower, the hum of the city outside, faded away. I stared at the images, each one a knife, twisting in my heart. There was no room for doubt now. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a mistake. This was betrayal. I felt a surge of anger, a white-hot rage that threatened to consume me. But beneath it, a deeper pain. The pain of being lied to, of being deceived by someone I loved, someone I trusted. When Sarah came out of the bathroom, I was waiting for her. I held out the phone, my hand trembling. Her face drained of color. She looked at the screen, then at me, her eyes wide with fear. What is this?" she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. "You know what it is," I said, my voice low and steady, but shaking inside. "Pictures of you and Mark, together." She tried to deny it. I can explain," she said, her voice pleading. "It's not what you think." "Don't," I said. "Don't lie to me anymore. I saw the messages. I saw the pictures. There's nothing to explain." The denial crumbled. She started to cry, the tears streaming down her face. I didn't mean to hurt you," she said. "It just happened." "It just happened?" I repeated, the words bitter and hollow. "You just happened to be with someone else? For how long, Sarah? How long have you been lying to my face?" She couldn't answer. She just stood there sobbing, her head bowed in shame. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break things, but I didn't. I stood there numb, the pain washing over me in waves. "It's over," I said, the words final and absolute. I can't do this anymore. I can't be with someone who can lie to me like this, who can betray me so completely. She tried to touch me, to reach out, but I stepped back. "Don't touch me," I said. Just go." And she did. She left, leaving me standing there, alone with the shattered pieces of my heart and my relationship scattered around me. The door slamming behind her echoed in the silence, a finality that settled heavy in the air. It wasn't the dramatic exit I might have imagined in a movie, all shouting and tears. It was quiet, stark, and utterly devastating. The initial shock wore off, replaced by a gnawing emptiness. The apartment felt different, colder somehow. The familiar scent of her perfume, usually a comfort, now felt like a cruel reminder. I wandered through the rooms, touching things we had shared. The framed photo on the bedside table, our smiles frozen in a time that now felt like a lie. The books on the shelf, the ones we had read aloud to each other. The coffee mugs in the kitchen, still bearing the faint stain of her lipstick. Each object was a tiny shard of memory, a piece of the life we had built, now shattered. And with it, my trust. It wasn't just Sarah, it was everything. Every word she had said, every gesture she had made, now seemed suspect. I replayed conversations in my head, searching for clues I had missed, for the moments when the lie had begun. I remembered her saying, "I love you," her eyes bright, her voice sincere. Had that been a lie? Had it all been a performance? The thought made my stomach churn. The nights were the worst. The bed, once a place of warmth and intimacy, now felt vast and empty. I couldn't sleep, tossing and turning, haunted by the images from her phone, by the sound of her voice saying words that now felt hollow. I thought about our friends. How would I explain this? What would they say? Would they take sides? Would they understand? The thought of navigating those social minefields, of having to dissect my pain for others, felt exhausting. And then there was the practical stuff, the lease on the apartment jointly signed, the shared bank account, now a source of anxiety, the future we had planned, the trips we had talked about, the life we were supposed to build together, all gone. It wasn't just the loss of a relationship, it was the loss of a future I had believed in, a future I had invested in. And with it, a part of myself felt lost too. I reached out to a few friends, hesitant, unsure of what to say. Their responses were kind, sympathetic, but their words felt distant. They couldn't truly understand. They hadn't felt this betrayal, this complete shattering of trust. I felt isolated, alone in my pain. The world outside went on, oblivious to the earthquake that had ripped through my life, and I was left to pick up the pieces, to try to make sense of the wreckage, to figure out how to move forward when the ground beneath me had crumbled away. The initial shock has faded, replaced by a dull, persistent ache. It's like a constant pressure, a weight I carry with me everywhere I go. I find myself lost in thought, replaying everything, trying to make sense of it all. Why? That's the question that echoes in my mind over and over. Why did she do it? What did I do wrong? Was I not enough? I know logically that her actions are her responsibility, that I'm not to blame for her choices. But the feeling of being inadequate, of being unworthy of her love and honesty, lingers. I go back to the beginning, to the early days, when everything felt perfect. The laughter, the shared dreams, the feeling of connection. Was any of it real, or was it all a carefully constructed facade, a performance she was putting on for my benefit? I remember the red flags, those little moments of unease that I had dismissed, the inconsistencies in her stories, the subtle changes in her behavior. They're so clear now in hindsight, but at the time I had chosen to ignore them, to trust her, to believe in the best. Was I naive, foolish, or just too trusting? I wonder if I should have been more suspicious, more vigilant. But the thought of constantly doubting someone you love, it's a terrible way to live. The pain is relentless. It hits me at the most unexpected moments. A song on the radio, a familiar scent, a glimpse of someone who looks like her, and suddenly I'm back there reliving the betrayal, the hurt, the confusion. Sleep is a battle. I lie awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. I dream of her, of us, of what we had, and then I wake up, the reality of the situation crashing down on me like a tidal wave. I try to distract myself, to keep busy, to fill the void with work, with friends, with anything to avoid the silence, the emptiness, the constant reminder of what I've lost. But it's no use. The pain is always there, lurking beneath the surface, waiting to resurface. I find myself questioning everything. My judgment, my intuition, my ability to trust again. How can I ever open myself up to someone else, knowing that they could hurt me like this? The future stretches before me, uncertain and daunting. I had pictured my life with her, a home, a family, a shared journey. Now that future is gone, replaced by a question mark. I don't know what lies ahead. I don't know if I'll ever be able to fully heal from this. But I know one thing, I can't let this experience define me. I can't let her betrayal destroy my ability to love, to trust, to hope. It's going to be a long, painful journey, but I have to believe that someday I'll find my way back to myself. The days are starting to blur, a slow, monotonous march. But within that monotony, I can feel tiny shifts, subtle movements in the heavy weight that has been pressing down on me. It's not a sudden lifting, not a miraculous cure, but more like the first rays of dawn after a long, dark night. I started seeing a therapist. I know it's a cliche, but talking to someone who doesn't know either of us, someone who can offer an objective perspective, has been helpful. It's like having a guide in this emotional wilderness, someone to help me navigate the pain. The first few sessions were brutal, just reliving the betrayal, recounting the details, brought it all back, raw and fresh. I cried, I yelled, I sat in silence, unable to speak. But slowly, gradually, I started to unravel the tangled mess of emotions, to identify the different layers of hurt. Anger, mostly. A deep, burning anger at her for what she did, at myself for being so blind, for trusting her so completely. But also sadness, a profound sadness for the loss of what I thought we had, for the future that will never be. And underneath it all, a fragile hope, a tiny spark that refuses to be extinguished. My therapist talks about grief, about how betrayal is a form of loss, and how I'm grieving the death of my relationship, the death of my dreams. It makes sense in a way. I'm going through the stages, not in a neat, linear progression, but in a messy, chaotic dance. Denial. I'm mostly past that now, but sometimes, in the quiet moments, I still catch myself thinking, maybe it was all a misunderstanding. Maybe she'll come back. And then reality hits me, and the pain floods back. Anger. That's still a big one. I lash out at her in my head, imagining all the things I want to say, the accusations I want to hurl. I replay the confrontation, wishing I had said this or done that, but I know it's just a way of processing the hurt, of trying to regain some sense of control. Bargaining. I did that too. In the early days, I would bargain with myself, thinking, if only I had been more attentive, more loving, maybe she wouldn't have done it. But that's a dangerous path, a path that leads to self-blame and guilt. Depression. There were days when I couldn't get out of bed, when the world felt gray and meaningless. I lost my appetite, my energy, my motivation. But even in those darkest moments, there was a tiny voice inside me whispering, this won't last forever. You will get through this. And now acceptance, I'm not there yet, not fully, but I'm starting to accept that what happened happened, that I can't change the past, that I can't force her to be someone she's not. I'm starting to accept that the pain is a part of the process and that it will eventually fade, leaving behind scars perhaps, but also a deeper understanding of myself and of relationships. I've started taking long walks, listening to music, spending time with friends who actually care. Small things, but they help. They remind me that there's still beauty in the world, that there are still people who love and support me, and that I am still capable of feeling joy, even in the midst of pain. The fog is lifting slowly. It's not gone completely, but I can see glimpses of the sun, patches of blue sky through the clouds, and with that, a sense of myself. For so long, my identity was wrapped up in us, in our relationship, in the future we were building, in being Sarah's partner. Now that's gone, and in its place, there's me. It's strange, almost unsettling, to be just me again, to make decisions without considering her, to focus on my own needs and wants, to rediscover the things that make me, me. I started going back to the gym. I hadn't been in months. We used to go together, but she always seemed more interested in the social aspect, chatting with people, taking selfies. I was there to work out, to clear my head, to feel strong. The first few times were tough. I felt self-conscious, awkward, but as I started to get back into a routine, as I felt my body getting stronger, I felt a sense of accomplishment, a pride in myself that had nothing to do with her. I reconnected with old friends, people I hadn't seen in ages. We went hiking, played music, talked for hours. It was like rediscovering a part of myself I had almost forgotten, a part that had been buried under the weight of the relationship. They reminded me of who I was before Sarah, of my passions, my dreams, my sense of humor. They reminded me that I am a whole person, complete and valuable, independent of anyone else. I started taking a photography class. It's something I've always wanted to do, but I never had the time or the courage. It's challenging, frustrating at times, but also incredibly rewarding. To capture a moment, to see the world through a different lens, to create something beautiful, it's healing. I'm learning to trust my own judgment again, to listen to my intuition, to pay attention to my own needs and desires, to not dismiss my feelings or compromise my values for the sake of someone else. It's a slow process, a gradual rebuilding of a self-confidence that was badly damaged, There are still moments of doubt, moments when I question myself, when I wonder if I'll ever be able to trust again. But I'm learning to be patient with myself, to be kind to myself, to treat myself with the same compassion and understanding that I would offer to a friend. I'm starting to see that this experience, painful as it has been, has also been a kind of awakening. It has forced me to confront my own vulnerabilities, to examine my own patterns, to learn some hard but necessary lessons about myself and about relationships. And I'm emerging from it not unscathed, but stronger, wiser, and more self aware. I'm learning to love myself again, to value myself, to know my worth. And that, I realize, is the most important love of all. The world looks different now, not in a dramatic, everything is changed kind of way, but in a subtle, almost imperceptible shift. It's like I'm seeing things through a new lens, a lens that's clearer, sharper, but also more cautious. My perspective on relationships, on trust, has definitely changed. I used to be open, trusting. I believed in the inherent goodness of people, in the power of love to conquer all. Now, I'm more guarded. It's not that I've become cynical or bitter. I still believe in love, in connection, in the possibility of finding someone who will cherish and respect me. But I'm no longer willing to give my heart away so freely, to trust blindly, to ignore the warning signs. I find myself paying closer attention to the dynamics in other relationships, observing the subtle cues, the unspoken words, the way people treat each other. And I'm starting to recognize patterns, patterns I might have missed before, patterns that now make me wary. Honesty. That's the word that keeps coming up. It's no longer just a nice to have, a desirable quality in a partner. It's a non-negotiable. I need someone who is upfront, transparent, and willing to communicate openly and honestly, even when it's difficult or uncomfortable. Respect. That's another one. Not just polite courtesy, but a deep, genuine respect for my feelings, my needs, my boundaries. Someone who sees me as an equal, who values my opinions, who treats me with kindness and consideration. I've started dating again, slowly, cautiously. I'm not rushing into anything. I'm taking my time, getting to know people, observing their behavior, listening to my gut. It's strange, this new approach. It feels almost clinical at times, like I'm conducting an interview rather than going on a date. But I know it's necessary. I need to protect myself to avoid repeating the mistakes of the past. I'm learning to recognize healthy relationship patterns, the give and take, the mutual support, the ability to communicate openly and honestly, even when there are disagreements, the feeling of being seen, heard, and valued. And I'm also learning to recognize unhealthy patterns, the manipulation, the control, the dishonesty, the lack of respect, the feeling of being used, ignored, or taken for granted. Like, it's a delicate balance. I don't want to be overly suspicious or paranoid, but I also don't want to be naive or gullible. I'm trying to find that middle ground, that sweet spot between trusting and being cautious, between opening myself up and protecting my heart. The anger and resentment I felt towards Sarah are fading slowly but surely. It's not that I've forgotten what she did, but I'm no longer consumed by it. I'm starting to let go of the past, to forgive her, not for her sake, but for my own. I realize that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It only hurts me, and I deserve to be happy. I deserve to find someone who will love me the way I deserve to be loved. The journey hasn't been easy. There were times when I thought I wouldn't make it, when the pain felt too overwhelming, when I wanted to give up on love and relationships altogether. But I'm here, I'm still standing, and I'm stronger for it. I've learned a lot about myself, about my capacity for resilience, my ability to heal, and my strength in the face of adversity. I've learned that I'm capable of feeling deep pain, but also of experiencing profound joy. That I can be vulnerable, but also strong. That I can be hurt, but also heal. Sharing my story, talking about what happened, hasn't always been easy. It's exposed my vulnerability, my pain, my weaknesses. It's forced me to confront the things I'd rather forget. But it's also been incredibly liberating. I used to think that dignity meant silence, that strength meant keeping everything bottled up inside. But I've learned that true strength lies in vulnerability, in allowing yourself to feel, in expressing your emotions, in sharing your story with others. It's been a process of self acceptance, of acknowledging that what happened is a part of my story, a part of who I am. It doesn't define me, but it has shaped me. It has made me more aware, more empathetic, more compassionate. I've connected with people who have gone through similar experiences, who understand the pain of betrayal, the struggle to heal, the fear of trusting again. And in their stories, I've found comfort, validation, and hope. I've realized that I'm not alone, that betrayal is a common human experience, that many people have felt the same way I have, and that they have survived and even thrived. The dismissive message from my mom, the one that started this whole journey, has taken on a new meaning for me. Growing up isn't about ignoring your emotions, about pretending that everything is fine, about dismissing your pain. It's about facing your pain, acknowledging it, processing it, and learning from it. It's about taking responsibility for your own healing, for your own happiness. It's about becoming stronger, wiser, and more self aware. I'm still learning, still growing. I'm still working on trusting again, on opening myself up to the possibility of love. But I'm hopeful. I believe that I will find someone who will love me for who I am, who will respect me, who will be honest with me, and who will cherish me. And I know that when I do, I will be ready. I will be stronger, wiser, and more prepared to build a healthy, loving, and lasting relationship. The betrayal I experienced was painful, but it doesn't have the final word on my life or my capacity for love.